Today on Dylan Talks Stone, we're going to talk about how pickups work. Seems pretty basic, right? We're going to talk about how pickups work. We're going to talk about 5 myths about guitar pickups that you probably heard on the internet this week. Do me a favor, if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We have like 500 videos about this stuff, and it's a lot of fun to make this stuff. So do me a favor and do that, and that keeps us going. All right, so let's talk about how guitar pickups work. It's really important. It's the basis of the tone in the whole guitar, because no matter what you add after that, volume pots, tone pots, pedals, amps, cables, everything, and all the stuff that people nerd out about guitars starts with the pickups. Why do we say that? Because that's where the beginning of all of this goes. Now, on an acoustic guitar, the reason we hear a louder guitar is because we take the vibration of that string. The vibration vibrates the bridge, which vibrates the soundboard, which basically almost acts like a drum, and it actually pushes air to our ears, and that's what we hear. An electric guitar is completely different. We're not pushing air. Now, you can hear, when you pluck the string, you can hear it across the room, because that little, that little motion of air, you can kind of hear it, right? But from about 10 feet away or something, all you really hear is pick slap. You don't really hear the tone. In fact, up close, you don't really hear a lot. You just hear a little bit of the vibration from the motion of the string. So what we're trying to do with an electric guitar is different. We're not trying to vibrate the guitar itself and then change that into air motion. What we're actually trying to do with that magnetic pickup, use that magnetic pickup as a magnetic transducer, which changes one form of energy to another form of energy. So we're taking the motion and we're changing it into electrical current. That's actually what we're doing. We're actually trying to take the motion and change it into a voltage. Basically, we have a coil of wire, and we have a magnetic core in that coil of wire. Now, some pickups, we have a screw, a bunch of screws, right, that's hooked to a magnet underneath, but nevertheless, we're making the core of that coil magnetic somehow. On a single coil, that'd be like on a humbucker or a P90, for example. On a single coil pickup, like a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, the magnets themselves are the core of the pickup. Like the magnetic poles that you see next to the strings are the core of that coil. The combination of the coil and the magnetic core is what makes the pickup. That's the fundamental pieces. We'll get into some myths about this stuff in a few minutes. Basically, what we do is we vibrate the string, and it's not the air that's causing anything, like a microphone. It's actually the metal string is disturbing the magnetic field that magnetic core creates. When that magnetic field vibrates or shakes, think of if you stick your finger next to or on top of a bowl of Jello, and you just vibrated your finger like this, moved your finger back and forth, and that bowl of Jello started to move, like jiggle back and forth. I know it's a weird, stupid visualization, but just for the purposes of our conversation, bear with me. So if your finger is on top of that bowl of Jello and you're vibrating it like this, and the whole bowl of Jello is vibrating, that's basically what you're doing, more or less, for this purpose of this conversation, to the magnetic field in a pickup. Once that thing starts to move with the vibration of the string, basically it excites a voltage in the wires of the coil. And the wires of the coil have a voltage that correspond to the motion of the string. Now you have a voltage that goes through your cables, through your everything, and then goes to your amp, and then that voltage gets amplified. And then gets turned back into sound with a speaker. That's a whole nother conversation. But the reason we want to discuss how a pickup works is because it really helps us to understand how important setup is, and it helps us to understand that that's where everything starts. Every pickup has a resonant peak. That means this pickup is the best at making this particular frequency. That's what you want to find for your guitar. Now, you can adjust that later with stuff, but if it doesn't have it in the first place, you can't put it back in. So, in future videos, if you have any questions about the particulars of that, put that in the comments, and then we will make that maybe into some other videos. We'll talk about the particulars of how we can shape that with the pickup, and what we do after that with the tone circuit and all that sort of stuff. We can talk about that later. Here's the thing though, people have pretty much made this whole pickup thing into basically like a religion. And so we're going to talk about 5 myths about pickups. Now that you understand, you're basically just shaking a bowl of Jello and turning it into an electrical current. That's all you're doing. It is a super basic piece. People want to get super technical and crazy about stuff, but the bottom line is it is a rudimentary piece of technology. It's not that complicated. It's a coil of wire with a magnet in the middle with a string shaken over it. So let's get into some myths that people want to kind of make into various religious beliefs about guitars, and we're going to dispel some of those right now. Myth number 1. If a pickup has higher DC resistance, that means it has more output. On the face of it, that may sound like it's true. However, it's only true if everything in the pickup is the same except for the number of winds, which is rarely the case. If you change the magnet type, if you change the magnet strength, which we'll get to in a minute, if you change the type of wire, so the insulation on the wire, the thickness of it, the thickness of the wire, that sort of stuff, if you change any of that, if you make the pickup a tiny bit taller or a tiny bit shorter or a tiny bit fatter or thinner, that will all change the tone. And then that comparison, that number, 10.5K, 7.3K, 5.9K, will all not matter, basically. It'll kind of be close, but remember when we talked about how pickups work and that resonant peak, which is the peak, the frequency that pickup makes the best, that will change when you change any of that stuff, and that changed the fundamental tone of the pickup. So that is really false. If you just look on a website and you use this many K, this is what it's going to sound like, and all of a sudden I'm going to sound like Slash, it's just not true. Myth number 2. Okay, so magnets have numbers. A2, A3, A5, A8, C8. A lot of people think that the higher an Alnico number is, for example, Alnico 5 versus Alnico 3 versus Alnico 2, then that makes that magnet stronger, which means it's going to give you more output in the pickup. Again, variables, okay? So when we take an Alnico 5 magnet, for example, that actually refers to the maximum amount of gauze, which is the measurement of magnetism in the pickup, or in the magnet. That's the maximum that it can have, as opposed to a 2 or a 3. And they're all different. But that doesn't mean that I, as a pickup builder, can't not magnetize it all the way up. So, especially depending on the process, depending on how it's measured, depending on how old it is, all those things can, or what it's been exposed to, heat, other magnetic fields, all those sorts of things, that particular pickup, even though it says it's an Alnico 5, might not be an Alnico 5. It might be weaker than that. These first 2 things, when you're talking to your pickup builder, that's why you can't just go to the website and just be like, I'm going to click on this right here, and all of a sudden I'm going to sound like my favorite guitar player. It's just not going to happen, because you have to have that conversation. You know, when we have customers call us, we literally have a conversation about like what guitar they play, how they use their knobs in the guitar, what their favorite pedals are, what their favorite amp is, what kind of music they play, where their amp settings are. All of those things go into the choice of the pickup. And it also has more to do with the sound that you're trying to get out of all that with what you have than it is who you're trying to sound like or what record you're trying to copy or whatever. If you're trying to copy somebody, if you're trying to just sound like Slash, just go buy Slash's pickups. Don't even call me. But if you're trying to like make a sound and understand how it all works and figure it out so that you can make the sound that you hear in your head, that's when it's really important to just call the pickup builder and have that conversation. Myth number 3. Alnico pickups are warmer than ceramic pickups. Again, this is just not true. There's too many other variables. The wire, the amount of winds, the magnet placement within the pickup, the construction of the pickup. We have a ceramic humbucker, for example. Our 8-ball is really, really warm. Depending on how you use it, depending on other factors, again, it's a conversation. Get out of the habit of buying pickups based on the numbers that are on the piece of paper and start having conversations about your tone as a package. You got to zoom out Zoom way out. This is the whole problem with guitar players. They want to like focus in on one little thing. That brings me to myth number 4. Myth number 4. Every piece of the pickup has something to do with the tone. This is inspired by all these vintagey guys that want to say that you have to have butyrate bobbins, that you have to have maple spacers in your humbuckers, that you have to have all these materials exactly the same as back in 1959, otherwise the guitar's not going to sound good. It's absolutely a myth. If it's not a metallic piece, if it's not a piece of metal in the pickup, it's not going to make any difference. That's physics. That's not opinion. That's not I'm a vintage hater or anything like that, because I like vintage guitars, I really do. But that doesn't mean that everything matters. There's like a butyrate bobbin versus an ABS bobbin. Nope. Maple spacer versus a plastic spacer. Nope. Now, base plate materials, pickup cover materials, anything that's a metallic piece, the screw poles, all that kind of stuff, yeah, that's gonna matter, but that's all physics. That's all, you can look it up. You can learn that physics and you can know what difference it makes and how much difference it makes, and actually none of it really makes that big a difference individually. Maybe on the whole, but not individually. So don't get wrapped up. Again, zoom out and look at the whole package. Don't get wrapped up in one little tiny thing and say, I have to have this, otherwise I'm gonna suck. Chances are you're not even gonna notice. Relax and play guitar. Just relax and play guitar. Myth number 5. Scatter wound pickups are better than machine wound pickups. There is some physics that goes into this. We have a whole video on it. In fact, we won't even get into the details of this. If you want to get super, super nerdy, the bottom line is there is a scientific reason why a scatter wound pickup could be better than a machine wound pickup, but it's not a better or worse thing. So better is even inaccurate. It's just different. And so understanding how that all works, that's a whole, now there is science to that, there is math to that. We'll put a link to it up here. It's like a 10-minute video or whatever on its own. That's a whole thing, and I think you should definitely go and watch it. So there's your 5 myths. The gist of all of this is to just zoom out and play guitar. Zoom out and just chill and learn tone, like the whole thing. Like look at your whole thing as a package. Your guitar, your amp, the style of music you play, the pedals that you use, and start to think of this whole thing as a package. Don't zoom in on one particular piece. That's what guitar players want to do. They want to zoom in and kind of lose it all. Kind of lose the point of doing all of this and nerd out more about one particular piece of their gear than actually being creative and playing the music. So make sure you don't do that. Make sure you kind of like zoom out and look at this as a package. And when you're making purchase decisions about pickups, call your pickup builder and have a conversation with them. Shoot them an email, have a conversation with them, and make sure that you can get exactly what you want from the dude that's building your pickups. Because it's all just people making stuff. And so if they'll take the time and have that conversation, to me, that's the most important. That's what I want. You know what I mean? So, cool. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, put it in the comments. Be nice, obviously. It's starting to rain, so I need to get in there before my camera gets wet. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like, and make sure you share this stuff. And we'll be back with more guitar nerdery and other things about how this stuff works in the very near future. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you soon.